if you feel like you struggle in a particular area, don't let that stop you from applying to grad school.
And welcome. Thank you for taking the time to share about your experience with the shorter GRE today. We're super excited to have you here. So first things first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like name, country, and what you're taking the GRE for?
So my name is Annie. I'm from the States originally, and I am taking the GRE because I want to get a Master of Public Administration or a Public Affairs. Probably I want to enter grad school next year, 2024 fall. So I took it in preparation for that.
Start with for this exam, I think you mentioned you only taken the shorter GRE, right? Not the old one.
Yeah,
Okay,
only the shorter. Yeah.
got it.
They
So
actually they changed, yeah, when I was in the middle of prep, they changed they changed it, so I was happy. Yeah.
So that's a good segue actually, because I wanted to ask, like, how did you prepare for the shorter GRE? What materials did you use? And like, did you have to switch up your strategy when they made that change?
Yeah, so I use Magoosh, the online version, but I also had to I live in a place with limited internet access, so I had to use some physical books as well. So I used the Manhattan 5 pound book and I used some Kaplan resources as well, just to kind of be able to do more prep if my connection was offline.
So would you say you did like half books and Magoosh prep, or like what percentage?
So it really helps me to have somebody walking me through explanations because, especially for math, I don't always understand it on my own. For the verbal, I was able to do more like in the book and also flashcards. But for math, I definitely benefited from the video explanations. About 50-50, maybe a little bit more on Magoosh because, videos make it easier for me. Yeah.
We've had good feedback on the video explanations. So, what did your typical prep week look like? And did you use any like study schedules?
Like a lot of people prepping for the GRE, I was also working during the day. So after I'm a teacher in primary school, so after a day of school, I'd come home, decompress, and then try to do at least an hour and a half a day. And the way I would keep myself on track is just by setting timers on Google or online timers. And if I get up for any reason, I pause the timer so I don't like start and then do something else and then come back. So I tried to stick with like an hour and a half a day and then like 2 hours on the weekends because my schedule was like 2.5 months that I spent total on GRE prep.
So, you started prepping in the summer of this year?
Yeah, in like mid-August, I started seriously like nose to the grindstone prepping, and then I took the GRE at the end of October. That time worked for me. I think if I had dragged it out longer, it would have been challenging to keep up the schedule, but I could always keep the finish line in sight, which helped me, you know. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we recommend like about 3 months, or like you were just under 3 months, just to get enough time to prep, but also, yeah, not feel like it's so far away, it's like unattainable.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
For
The whole
sure.
grad school process is long. Application process is like 6 months. It could even be 5, 6 months.
Did you make any strategy changes when they announced the shorter GRE, or did you kind of keep doing everything mostly the same?
So for the most part, I kept up my prep. I was always focused more on the quant section because that was my weaker area. But when they announced the shorter one, it was definitely a sense of relief and it made me feel like, okay, I can get through this because almost 4 hours exam, the last one, that's a slog. Like
Yeah.
that kills the whole day. Versus this one, it's only like half the day, let's say, you know? So yeah, so it made my practice sets that I took like shorter because there's no need to do a full length practice set for the old one if the new one is shorter. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Speaking of that, do you have any tips or advice for students preparing for the shorter GRE?
I would say that the shorter GRE, the section goes by quicker. And it's important to recognize when you don't know something and to take the allotted time for the section and use it wisely instead of because you notice more if you waste a minute or two extra on a question that you ultimately can't answer. So my advice is like be humble and know what you don't know going in, and you can practice that strategy on the practice exams to kind of like speed
Mhm.
yourself along. That's my advice.
Yeah, definitely. Like pacing and also
Hmm.
with the points too, that like each question's worth a little bit more, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it was a good. I'm glad they shortened it. I think it makes it more reasonable for students. Students work hard enough on the exam, so I'm glad they made it a little bit more accessible.
How did you use like Magoosh to, for example, help with quant? You mentioned that that was like a little bit harder for you.
I would use it in connection with a physical prep book. So, for instance, if I was on the statistics section of a Kaplan book and doing statistics related problems, I would also be looking at the statistics videos in that module of Magoosh and just kind of going through them at the same time. I used Magoosh to reinforce concepts, but also to explain new concepts that I was unfamiliar with. I definitely watched most of the videos in the quant section and sometimes some of the videos twice. And I also used Magoosh to make notes to myself. Sometimes sense of humor, inside jokes to myself, like, "Oh no, that was too hard. Come back next time." So just being able to mark my progress, and then if I came back to that video, I would say, "See, I can do it." So I used it to as a motivation tool, as a way to measure progress and reinforce concepts primarily, which was helpful. Yeah, and I
Awesome.
used
Yeah.
practice questions as well. Yeah, the questions, I would do that as a way to build up my stamina before taking full practice exams. I would
Mm.
do like, all right, I'm going to do 10 questions and I'm just going to get through it. And then, check my answers and use the explanations as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. So, would you recommend using this approach for other students taking the shorter GRE?
I would, especially I would say especially if you're in a place with like less than stable internet connection or less than stable electricity. You need to have a backup method because it's very frustrating to feel like you can't study properly if you don't have the internet. Like some people need
Mhm.
both for their circumstances and for their learning strategy. My learning strategy is like try to do it myself, have trouble, look at the video, try to do it a little better. So for people for whom that works, yeah. And especially if you can't get an in-person tutor for whatever reason, like me, I can't get a tutor at this point. So it really helped as like a virtual tutor.
Oh, did you use like flashcards or any other like study materials?
I used some pieces of paper that I would write formulas on and keep it right in front of my desk so that I would look at it and absorb it. And I also used vocabulary flashcards. I spent a lot of time on vocabulary, which some of it came up, most of it didn't. But it's kind of like you need to just build up your skill at learning words and inferring the meaning from context. So yeah, I
Mhm.
used I used flashcards, which were good on the go. I would take them to school and do it between lessons. Like they'd be like, "What's that, Miss Annie?" And I would say, "It's my flashcards. Me too. I'm also learning, just like you." Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's funny. Were your students like confused why you're also studying?
Yeah, and I used it as a motivation tool to say you're not, because they think I'm 26, but they think that's really old. So it's like, see, you're never too old to learn, right? You're learning here in primary school. Me too. I'm going to go back to school when I go to back to America. So my advice to myself and my advice to other students is if you feel like you struggle in a particular area, don't let that stop you from applying to grad school. Because for me, I was thinking, okay, well, I want to apply to grad school, but I'm not good at math. And then I had the realization of like, either you just do some math and go to grad school, or you just leave your whole life plan on the side. So you know what I mean?
Mhm.
You need to don't let this hurdle stop you, because it's just a hurdle and you'll get over it, you know, and you'll feel proud of yourself for accomplishing it and sticking with it, and it builds your you know, it helps you in other areas of your life. Like I learned a lot of new words that sometimes I see in reading the Atlantic or the Times, and I can recognize it. Yeah, so that's my advice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, I think one of our blog articles recommends like reading the Times and like the Atlantic to
Oh,
learn new vocab words. So yeah, so there's proof that there's GRE words in
they
there.
use them. They do. They do. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today.